All right, we are live.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Sweat the Bet podcast brought to you by OddsJam.com. For those of you who are not familiar, you better get familiar with OddsJam, especially if you are into sports betting, because OddsJam.com, we try to equip you, the sports bettor, with all of these great tools to try our best to give you an edge back against the sportsbook, guys. So don't do all this manual line shopping. Don't have to sit there getting 8,000 alerts from random cappers. Just basically use efficient tools and software that lets you know where the best odds are, where you're getting an edge with positive EV alerts. And we have all of these brand new features. We have things like a brand new app. They have the OddsJam Player Prop app for the iOS store. So go download it now. It is literally free. You get easy to view, visualized charts, player prop trends, all of these different breakdowns and splits. Download it. There's nothing to lose. It's absolutely free. Even the main website, we have even these cool new features like the parlay builder comparison feature where you can build parlays and even literally not even just line shop your regular straight bets, but you can literally shop parlay odds. Okay. And people literally sit here in these WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, even these Discords, sitting there building them and chatting with each other. What is it on FanDuel? What is it on Dread? Just build it on our website, compare, shop quick. This is what I'm talking about, guys. So you have to check out oddsjam.com, our awesome sponsor of this podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Andrew Kim, aka the Parlay Doc on Twitter. And here's my co-host, Matt Modi. Matt, I'm glad to be back from being sick, man. Thanks for holding down the fort last week.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. It was I had to miss a show. I was on the IR with COVID. I understand exactly I know exactly how you feel. It is no fun. Glad to have you back healthy.
No, I'm glad. And we have an action-packed episode, guys. I know you've been following us and we've been talking a lot of NBA and stuff, but today we're going to shift a little bit as we're drawing a little bit closer, guys. I know you're all pumped up, inching a little bit closer to the NFL season. So we will be talking about some of the big NFL quarterback moves like Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, Baker, and just kind of how we see those being impactful or just middling kind of moves. Talk about some of the big key wide receiver moves with Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. We're going to do a lightning round talking about second-year QBs. Do we see this being a sophomore slump or a sophomore breakout year for people like Justin Fields, Go Bears, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, all these guys? And then, of course, wrapping it up with some of our best bets going into this weekend. So we got an action-packed conversation, guys. For those of you who are NFL fanatics, this is your episode. We're going to already start kind of kicking in to NFL mode starting today, starting to whet our appetites with just fantasies of what could be and what we're going to expect. And we'll see how it plays out once week one happens. And you know how it is week one, guys. You either get your dreams dashed right away in week one, or you get a ray of hope and you hope that it plays out pretty well. So that's what we got in store for you guys today. So, just follow along, guys. Send us your comments. We'll try our best to kind of incorporate your feedback and your questions and chats in the chat over here. So thanks for you guys who are already on the live stream right now. So let's kick it off with our traditional no sweat commentary here. So we always kind of kick it off here. So here's my question for you, because we're kind of in this lull, of, I guess, sports or even sports betting, if you're a frequent sports bettor, where again, we're waiting for NFL, we're waiting for NBA, and I'm sorry for MLB fanatics. Yes, this is prime MLB time, but I'm just not a huge MLB guy. I used to be growing up. I was a huge MLB Cubs fan, and that's all I would watch, actually, before I started liking basketball and football more. So I'm not hating baseball, but I just feel like it is what it is. It's it is kind of this lull, this like doldrums of whether you say major sports, right, or even when it comes to sports betting, people are kind of waiting for NFL to kick off, NBA season to kick in again. So here's my question. The way that our society is going, Matt, I mean, right now, I think most people, some will disagree. Obviously, outside the U.S., soccer or football is huge. But here in the U.S., right, I think to this day, the big four still kind of remain NFL, NBA, then debatable, MLB, NHL, but those are kind of the standard kind of big four that people will say are like the big four major sports, right? So the way that things are trending, I don't think the debate has been as strong lately, but like there's been, there was so much talk in recent years about MLB and its ability to kind of draw in the younger generation, especially with how we're kind of hardwired now for everything to be instant and how baseball is such a slow sport, et cetera. I think gambling is kind of salvaging it to some degree, in my opinion, but would you say, is it possible that I'll even put a timeline of 5 years, 5 years from now, that what was used to be a very, very niche and not popular sport of MMA, like UFC, and now you're even seeing things like PFL, Bellator, all these things even still thriving. Will MMA or the UFC, if you want to be more specific, will that end up somehow replacing either the MLB or whatever? Let's say MLB, NHL. You want to argue. I don't think it's going to obviously nothing can touch the NFL, and NBA is still way up there. So in 5 years, is it possible that in the eyes of our kind of mainstream media and society and kind of popularity, that MMA can actually dethrone either the MLB or NHL in popularity?
So I guess I would need to understand the definition of like, what do you mean exactly by popularity?
Okay, how about this? I would say percentage growing fan base year over year. Do you think that MMA will surpass
if we're
incremental growth per year?
Oh yeah, I think if you're giving
the slopes will be going in total opposite directions of.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's probably already happening, to be honest with you. I feel like because of like gambling being legal now for like 5 or 6 years or maybe 4 years, whatever the time frame is, MMA has probably grown immensely because of that. I feel like there's always like a niche following for MMA and UFC and stuff, but it's become much more mainstream with like bigger name fighters and stuff. And I don't follow it at all really, so I'm not going to pretend that like I know what's going on, but I know that whenever there is like a big fight night, it's all over social media, which is not the greatest barometer, but it's like the greatest barometer of popularity for people like my age and probably closer to your age and even younger as well. It's people on social media. So
how about this? How about in 10 years? So I'll give it a fairer timeline because I think 5 is too soon. In 10 years, it just in terms of mass media, TV coverage, just total fandom, MMA will supplant either the NHL or MLB in popularity.
I don't think it'll get like the national, like the ESPN coverage. Like it's just too easy for ESPN with daily games for MLB and NHL. That's gonna take all of their focus. Especially during the summer when it's like the problem with the MMA is it's like once a week. I would assuming it's like every Saturday, right?
Yeah, right now they've actually gotten into a rhythm where it's usually peak times it's like almost once a week at this point, which was it's come a long way. I mean, before you were waiting a couple months sometimes. Maybe if you're lucky once a month. Even back in the day, every couple months. So it's really come a long way. But you're right. I mean, I think they have to figure out whether it's just there's more coverage of multiple leagues, whether it's PFL, Bellator, all these other kind of smaller leagues intermixed with UFC. They got to figure out a way, like you said, how do you get more than just once a week, right? Once every Friday or Saturday night, right?
And I think the problem is because it's not like a team building sport. There's no conversation that goes on like, this trade, this free agency move, like this, like what a dumb, like how dumb is this organization? Like you're not going to get any of that stuff, which I think for some people, and then like for me, like I think the team building aspect of sports is almost more fun than the actual physical play of it. Like I love like team building strategies and like the draft and like smart run organizations and stuff like that. I think is the most interesting thing to me, which you'll never get. And that's like, I mean, golf, tennis, all that stuff is not going to have it either. And I would say golf is insanely popular now to bet on. So I don't know. It's a good question. I still don't think it'll ever, in terms of coverage, like media coverage, mainstream media coverage, I don't think it'll honestly ever beat definitely MLB, maybe NHL, but NHL just has such diehards, like people that there's no casual NHL fan. It's like, you're either like an insane person with the NHL or you don't care.
No, but I liked your comments about we even talked about it during one of our NBA offseason episodes. We just love the drama, right? And you don't get as much. Mine is trash talking between two individual fighters. You don't get the you don't get the soap opera narrative over an entire
Yeah.
season or off season.
And it's such a showman, but like a lot of that trash talking stuff is just for show. It's just like to build up hype for the fight and stuff.
Yep. All right. So what do you got from any sweat or no sweat from me, Matt?
I got two. I got one sports related, one non-sports related. Which one do you want
All right.
first?
Give me the I'll take the sports one first, and then we'll take the non, because I'm intrigued by that one. So
okay, so I was just doing my like a divisional previews and stuff, going through each one. And here's my sweat or no sweat. The Chiefs don't win the AFC West. They do not win the AFC West. Another team does. It could be so basically Chiefs versus the field. I'm taking the field.
Chiefs, so AFC West. So we're talking Chiefs, Raiders,
Broncos,
Chargers, Broncos.
Chargers. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, no, I can. Yeah, I can say no sweat. I'll go no sweat.
You can get down with that.
I can get down with that. I actually can. I mean, look, and we'll talk about in a little bit. Like, I have some concerns about, Russ Wilson. And was it really just an off year because of injuries, or were we really starting to see some, weaknesses and vulnerability? Yeah, some decline. I mean, we'll see. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's always tough with injuries, but I mean, they have a legit roster. I mean, honestly, I still don't think to this day, and I know he makes some mistakes in some big moments sometimes, and he gets a bad rap, but Derek Carr he's a solid QB.
He's fine. He's fine.
And now you're adding a huge weapon like, Devontae Adams. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. So that's why I'm down. I can get down with that statement. I just think
I wouldn't be surprised if any of the other three teams won. Like, I'm not saying I think they will, but if you told me the Raiders won the division, I would say, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I think, this isn't a Raiders specific show, but I was surprised when I did all like the mathematical now, like devigging the markets, like all the math nerd stuff. The Raiders had the biggest positive expected value to win the Super Bowl and to win the AFC. The Raiders did. So they're like very analytically friendly and like mathematically friendly. I'm not sure I buy that, because I think Josh McDaniels has a better chance of being another train wreck than he does a good head coach. But I'm not one to go against math as an OddsJam employee.
Yeah. Well, I think you're already seeing some hints of that. I think the latest news was he was chewing out people like crazy and had some heated.
Guy was like, it's a typical wannabe Belichick Patriots assistant. Like, if you look at, so he interviewed for the Eagles head coaching job 2 years ago before they hired Sirianni. And this Eagles podcast I listened to did like a deep dive on him, basically on him. And it was like, just red flag after red flag. It's like, he hasn't had an above average offense without having Tom Brady as his quarterback. So it's like,
sure,
is he a good offensive coordinator? Anyways, we don't need to get into the Ravens deep dive, but I'm not personally, from my own like knowledge of football, not buying it. But again, the math is all over the Raiders.
Yeah. No, and we've even seen some of that. It's a different coach, but we saw that play out even with the Lions, right? When you had the defensive coordinator
Patricia
and
Joe
he
Judge
was great. He was great in his finite role in New England, obviously, but man, once he got he was a train wreck too, man. So it's
Joe Judge. It's like any Patriots assistant has never been successful.
Exactly. So what's the non-sports one? I'm intrigued. So
I moved to Colorado. I've been doing a lot more outdoorsy stuff. Been hiking a lot of trails. I think it's best practice. You pick up after your dog, no matter what you're doing. Why do we not pick up after horses? It's some trails. It's just overrun with horse crap. So sweat or no sweat, we should also be picking up for our horses.
Horse shit has to be huge, right? I'm assuming it's
but that to even more reason to pick up after it.
I think I'm having a hard time are these
they're like hiking trails, mountain.
Are these wild horses, or
no?
Are these horses or
no? It's people that have horses that take them, get them exercise, run them on the trails and stuff.
Oh God! In principle. In principle, if these are like walking paths,
which they are,
I would say have separate paths, because I know that's a cop-out answer, but I'll say, just seeing horses in parades, which is probably my only context of horses, they just seem to shit nonstop. So I think trying to monitor and pick that up would be a tough endeavor. That I would say, maybe I'm being a politician here. I'm like, why don't you just have a horse path and a human path for walking, and then
There
you
you
don't have
go.
to worry about the horse
That's a
shit.
good
How about
solution.
how about that?
Yeah.
How about that? How
I'll
about
take
that?
it. I'll take it.
Parlay doc for president in
2024.
I just solved the walking on horseshit problem in America right there. We're just going to have separate paths. So
especially walking dogs on paths and stuff, they don't really understand you got to avoid it. So anyway,
they're going to sniff that. So.
Yeah. And you have a dog,
I just got a brand new puppy, man. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I can feel the pain. All right, guys. So now that we're transitioning from horseshit, we're going to talk.
Let's talk about Carson Wentz.
Let's talk about Carson Wentz. Why not? Let's just do it. So
we're on the topic of horseshit.
Let's dive into our quarterback moves, some major trades for this offseason. Let's dive right into it, guys. So transitioning to a perfect segue of horseshit. Let's talk Carson Wentz to the Commanders. So, okay. I mean
what's bigger horseshit, the Commanders organization or the Carson Wentz as a quarterback?
Oh my gosh. I mean, look, man, here's a couple thoughts. I mean, these were the thoughts that I put together about Carson Wentz. So Commander Wentz. Okay. In fairness, I'm going to start off with the fairness. In fairness to Commander Wentz, and if you're being objective, right, as bad as he is sometimes, and obviously, look, the way that the Colts ended their season, that was horrific. I mean, that's one of the most epic fails I've just ever seen. I mean,
it was amazing.
It's amazing, amazingly epically terrible. So
yeah,
it's hard to get that image out of your head. But if you can somehow put that to the side, guys, and you look at the numbers, right? I mean, look, he had moments, and from a statistical standpoint, he had some decent moments. If anything, crazily enough, like his passing grade was actually better than the previous year. So, I mean, as crazy as that sounds, but
yeah, I mean, last year with the Eagles was horrible.
Exactly. So I'm saying one can argue like, okay, he was not amazing. I don't think anyone's gonna say that, but he did have bright spots, especially the first part of the season. I think the Indy fan base was like, oh my God, like what happened here? Did we actually pull off some kind of great move with a rejuvenated Carson Wentz? He's making Michael Pittman look good. It's a balanced attack with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, so look, there were, I think people forget, there were some bright moments, right? And there were some positives that you could take away from the season objectively. So in fairness to him, is he, can you, I guess here's a question, valid question that I'll kick it off with is he an upgrade over Taylor Heineke? Literally. And I know that's a weird question, but is he an upgrade?
I think it's a wash.
You think it's it's totally lateral, not even any upside?
No, I mean, well,
compared
yes,
to Taylor Heineke.
I'll give him credit. I mean, there's some throws that he makes that are just jaw dropping. He's always been capable of that. The problem is consistency. He'll hit,
sure,
like a monster 35 yards down the seam, right on the money, and then he'll just totally airmail a running back in the flat, or he'll airmail a slant. Like that's the problem with Wentz. There's a couple stats that I thought were interesting, but just in general, again, if you're looking at this objectively, I understand the upside with it. And I understand why the Washington did it, because like, they're just they're the worst run franchise in all of sports. So they're just going to they're like, okay, if we could just maybe get a good quarterback to erase the stink of Dan Snyder and just of all joke organizations, they reign supreme. They are the Darth Vader of bad franchises. But like, I mean, Wentz has been a train wreck for 2 years now. He had amazing Super Bowl year. He was okay to up and down 2 years after that. And then it's just been a downward curve towards just awfulness. I saw he was the most inaccurate quarterback in the NFL the past 2 years. Even if we're just taking out last year, which was better than the year before, the 23rd ranked quarterback according to PFF. Here are some quarterbacks, and this is just looking at passing grades, not looking at or not taking into account any rushing at all.
Sure.
Here are some quarterbacks that were better than Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts, which I was surprised by. Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, fine.
Yeah, sure.
Daniel Jones, Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay, Daniel
Jacoby
Jones.
Brissett. All ranked better than Carson Wentz. And just passing, not even talking about Hurts as a rusher or Daniel Jones as a rusher.
Okay, so not even taking into account the rushing, you're saying. So
strictly
just passing. Wow. Okay, that is pretty bad. So look, I'm not defending. I think Carson Wentz sucks. Okay, but I'm just saying, yes, I don't think it was a great move. I think it was a relatively lateral move, but with what you have, I do think I think he has more upside. And then again, it's like this this faint glimmer of hope of, can he somehow capture his 2017, 2018 statistical years, right? I mean, so you now see, that's the problem. Now you're reaching back 4 or 5 years saying,
In
can
like
he be something that he was 5 years ago in a
he's
good
had,
system with
yeah.
weapons? And
I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. All
he's
the
like had
context.
a shredded knee, a broken back, a broken
Yeah,
foot since then. Oh, he's got a worse offense. Like the Colts, I can't. I mean, the weapons outside of like just the passing weapons were okay. They were fine. They weren't great. But
sure.
if you look at like that offense as a whole, Frank Reich's a good coach. They had the best,
Yep.
like one of the best offensive lines, probably the best running game once Taylor got going and Derrick Henry got hurt.
Yep.
I mean, he's got good weapons in Washington. I'll give him that. Like, McLaurin's a stud.
Yep.
The running back Antonio Gibson's great, but they have a bad offensive line. And like Scary Terry is like a precision get open route runner, which is like, I mean, Wentz thrived with big receivers who he could just chuck the ball up and let them go
Sure.
get it. Like you mentioned, I just totally
Pittman.
blanking on his name. Yeah, Michael Pittman
Yep.
with Alshon Jeffrey back in his Eagles days. He's not one that's going to hit like a good route runner in the numbers. So I'm not necessarily sure that's a good like matchup between him and Scary Terry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is all we're talking about on the field. There's been like some really bad, not like bad as in bad teammate off the field stuff. Like nothing legal, nothing like that. It's certainly nothing like that. But like everybody freaking hates Carson Wentz. Everybody hates him. Like the story.
So you tell me, I mean, educate me, because literally, I only remember brief headlines because, I'm a Bears fan, so I'm more engrossed in Bears gossip and all this stuff. So back in the day, in those Philly days, were those locker room things true? Like people are saying like he's just egotistical, like.
So, yeah, I mean, who knows how true it is? I will say the guy that reported it has like really, really close relationships with a couple players on the Eagles. So
sure.
It's hard to say whether that was the majority opinion or not. And to be fair, when those reports came out, a lot of people came and defended him. Like Torrey Smith is still defending Carson Wentz, still to this day defending Carson Wentz. Torrey Smith, who was on that Super Bowl year. But I think the problem was he was amazing that Super Bowl year. And I just think mentally he never recovered from the team winning the Super Bowl without him. I just think that like totally broke him because
sure.
all the reports are after that year. Everything is after that year. They say like, he was like egotistical. He was selfish. He he wouldn't work with the offensive like coaching staff. Like he wanted to run what he wanted to run. Like he wouldn't work with them. And then I don't really know the nitty gritty of what happened in the Indianapolis because I washed my hands clean of him. I was done. But like, I mean, after the season, Wentz tried to call the owner to clear the air. The owner ignored his calls, and then Frank Reich had to present in a meeting to the GM Ballard and the owner Irsay and like apologize for like standing for like pushing for Wentz. He like literally had to apologize to the team for pushing for Wentz. So like I don't know what went down. I just know that I mean everybody hated him in Indianapolis, just hated him.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, bottom line, I mean, there wasn't really much to research here, in my opinion, because the numbers, I think everyone's aware of the numbers that we just went over and the trends. So it's just, I don't think it was I really don't see the point in the move. I don't think it was a great move for the Commanders. I do think, in fairness to him, he probably, even though it may not happen, you just hope that you can get some flashes where they're, like you said, those moments where he can make a few of those big throws. And I think he probably does have more upside than someone like Heineke, but he holds on to the ball for way too long. He tries to play hero ball. They have the O-line concerns that you're talking about. And then if this is, and I think everyone can agree, he's not the guy to take you to the next level, right? Unless there's some miracle, and a miracle happens this year. But
yeah,
then it's like, why do this? Why not just I mean, yes, maybe he's not ready and all this stuff, but I don't know. These days, when you pick a QB and you're banking on them to work out, like, why not just like let Sam Howell play? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why not just, what's the risk? You suck anyway. So why not let the young guy try? And if you see that maybe this could be the future of our franchise, then great. If not, you wash your hands that year and say, we move on to another young dart throw draft pick, right? I mean, so it's like, I don't get why they don't just play someone like him. I just don't understand the rationale.
If you want to understand the the messed up psyche of Carson Wentz. The Washington Football Commander team drafted Sam Howell in the 5th round, and they felt the need to call Carson Wentz to make sure that he wasn't going to be mad that they drafted a quarterback in the 5th round. They literally called him before, like, "Hey, you're eating ice cream. Is everything going to be okay if we draft a quarterback in the 5th round?" So, like,
it's just so weird. It's just I mean, ultimately, I don't see this as being impactful. As just a general comment. Maybe it benefits, Terry McLaurin a little bit if he's a little bit more accurate than some of his past QBs, but I just don't see it. I just don't think they have enough. I think they're going to have to lean on Gibson and McKissick a lot to make this somewhat of a balanced offense and almost kind of balance out Carson Wentz's deficiencies. So I think you're going to see
horrible thrower to running backs. That's the problem. He's like,
I know. I think this is going to be a slow paced, grinding affair. Honestly, I think these are going to be ugly. I think these are going to be ugly, grind out affairs on the offensive end of the ball for the Commanders, unfortunately. So I think the Commanders probably just have to prep themselves. Fans, have to prep themselves mentally that these are going to be some brutal games early on, I feel like, or throughout the whole season. So
it's a funny comment.
You're saying Bro, Delta Blade 21 says, "Doc, you say you're a Bears fan without the slightest amount of shame. I need what you're smoking." Bro, the Bears are going to be horrible this season. I've just come to accept it. So my mentality is, and we'll get to him later, can we keep Fields off the ground so he just does not get injured? So we just get a chance to. I felt like we could not even evaluate if he's decent or not. Like I know it sounds like an excuse, but it's like he was on the ground all the time. So I just want to see him have a chance to play actual offense so we could see, is he actually NFL ready, or did we take a stab and it just didn't work out? I think year one was just so bad from a coaching and scheme perspective that I will make an excuse for him saying we were just horrible from a coaching perspective. The O-line was horrible.
Talk about a doofus, Matt Nagy. I think, honestly, talk about a human being broken. I think the double doink broke Matt Nagy, because, that guy is the biggest buffoon. He was awful. He was terrible. After that 1 year they were good, he was like a terrible head coach. And he said like the stupidest stuff in the world. He made such a paraded around a bunch of kickers, kicking from that exact spot where Parkey missed it.
Yeah. After Tressman, I don't know, maybe he wasn't as bad, but I don't know. He was close to being as frustrating. So we've had a horrible string of coaches.
Bad stretch of coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like anything else on Wentz before I move on? I don't think there's too much more to say about Carson.
No, the final point is the big, a train wreck quarterback going to a train wreck organization. That's not going to work out.
So here's the interesting one. So let's move on. And I didn't really think I would be too excited to talk about this, but the more I just kind of read up on it and just kind of research this, I'm very fascinated, man, to see this. To Matt Ryan,
yeah,
on the Colts. For what was it? It was basically for what, a 2022 third round pick.
I think it was a third. I think that's all it was.
Yeah,
a third round pick. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And look, I get it, age, whatever, but I don't know. In my mind, what's the harm right here for the Colts? I'll let you kick this one off, but I actually was kind of optimistic when I looked into this, thinking look, he's not some stud, but anymore at this point, but I don't know. This one, I don't feel nowhere near what I feel like for the Wentz move by the Commanders. So
I agree. I like Matt Ryan. I think he's definitely not a top 10 quarterback anymore, but I think he's kind of become underrated because of how bad the Falcons have been.
Yeah.
Once Ridley was out last year, he just had no one to throw to. He just had Kyle Pitts. And again, I was looking at the PFF. He was 13th or 14th in passing last year. He wasn't terrible. He was ahead of all the people we named. He's even ahead of Mahomes, which I got to question these stats a little bit. Right behind Derek Carr. He was fine. I thought he was perfectly fine. And he goes to a great situation, and talk about the likability factor from going from Matt Ryan to Carson Wentz, and just a will move the offense the way it's supposed to be played type of
Sure.
quarterback from Ryan to Wentz. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts made a run and, had a good year. If they made the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised. If they were a top 3 seed, I wouldn't be surprised. I think they have everything except for quarterback. And I think Ryan is perfectly fine as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, and just like you said, I mean, looking at his stats from last year, of course, there's nothing to write home about. It was like 20 touchdowns and 12 picks. I mean, it was,
from a stats perspective. Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, in fairness to him, right? No Julio Jones, basically Ridley for 5 games. I mean, who is he going to throw touchdowns to? Right. There's literally
Russell
no
Gage.
weapon. Right. And they were horrible. Falcons were horrible. So it's like, my only concern in this scenario, I mean, I think it's a great fit. I mean, you veteran leadership, solid QB, still seems to have his arm, honestly, when you give him a clean pocket and a chance to throw. So, and obviously you have that nice balance with Jonathan Taylor, who's a freaking beast. So the only question though is, like, I'm looking at their, wide receiver roster, right. And who they got. So the problem is, right, outside of Pittman, who's obviously a very legit weapon and threat, it's like you have Alec Pierce, the 53rd pick. I don't know, and I'm going to say probably, I don't know much about him at all. It's just everything I'm reading is, great speed, vertical threat to stretch the field. So you're banking on, someone from Cincinnati that you just drafted to stretch the field. So who knows? That's a total unknown. So we'll see what happens there. Apparently, there's an athletic freak of Jelani Woods at tight end that was a 73rd pick that's supposed to complement Mo Alley Cox, who, I mean, I don't know, Mo Alley Cox, fine. Okay. I mean, he had random moments where he would get a few in the red zone barely, but that's my only concern is, like, is there going to be enough weapons, right? I mean, is there enough weapons to even utilize and maximize what you have in an experienced QB who still has a decent arm, right? So I just don't know, right? I mean, I don't know if that's going to be enough for, how heavily are they going to rely on the run? Is this going to be a very methodical, slow-paced offense with a lot of pick and pop? I mean, short yardage passes. So we're going to have to see, because there's a lot of unknowns, and obviously they're kind of in a I mean, it's weird. It's like they want to stay relevant and make a push, but they're going to be really green at a lot of positions, at a lot of key positions. So.
Yeah, the weapons is a fair point. He's basically going from no weapons to another team with no weapons. But I mean, I think having the running game and having Jonathan Taylor, assuming they have maybe not as much success as they had last year, because it's hard to replicate that, just having that as a weapon, Jonathan Taylor, like, I think he like Naheem Hines, he's like as solid as ever, is a good, like, I think they have enough. You're right. I mean, they're not the Chiefs, what the Chiefs used to have. And they don't have, like the Cowboys' old weapons and stuff like that, or like the Rams. I don't know, you can go on and on, but he's got enough, like, and I kind of trust the coaching staff and Matt Ryan to get the best out of what they have outside of Jonathan Taylor, who I think will probably be the fulcrum of the offense again, assuming he can stay healthy.
Yeah. But all in all, I liked your term, like from a likability perspective, it's like, it's going to be like, I don't know. I think it's going to be a fun team to watch. I mean, it's watching someone like Matt Ryan, who's like, it's hard to not like. There's nothing to not like about him. So like Matt Ryan with someone like Jonathan Taylor, who most people like rooting for because he's a stud. And then Pittman, it's like, likability factor wise, I mean, I think it'll be a fun team to kind of watch and root for. So we'll see with what they got, with some solid pieces, but a lot of young green draft picks. Let's see what they can do. It'll be interesting. So.
Yeah, I have faith in the coaching staff, but I think it'll be good. I think this one, for giving thumbs up or thumbs down, I think this one I'll give a thumbs up in terms of how it'll work out.
I'll give a thumbs up as well. I mean, I like it. I think it's a cool move. So let's move on to kind of a bigger name, and we did briefly touch on this in one of our previous episodes, but we'll go a little bit more in depth. So obviously, look, Russell Wilson onto the Broncos. So that was one of the hugest moves this offseason. So we got Russell Wilson going to the Broncos, leaving his long tenure with the Seahawks. So just to sum it up, the Broncos sent over Locke, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, 2022, 2023 first round picks, 2022, 23 second round picks, 2022 fifth round pick for Wilson, and a fourth rounder. So I mean, a lot was given up, right? So the only things, right? Look, I'm a huge Russ fan. I really I buy into the I'm like a fanboy. I buy into the hype of let Russ cook. I just want to see him sling it. And I am gonna miss the days of just him just airing it out to DK, to Tyler Lockett. That was just fun. I like air raid offenses. I just like those deep bombs. I don't care. I'm cheesy. I like it. I love rooting for offense, even though they're not even my hometown team. Who doesn't like throwing bombs and seeing touchdowns on a Sunday, right? So I was a little bored at times and frustrated when, it just seemed like the offense was stagnant. I think Russ needed a change, honestly. I just feel like, with Pete and just the culture there, it just seemed like they were just kind of getting stagnant and hitting a wall, not very creative. So I'm very excited to see, will it change of scenery, new schemes, new weapons? Let's see how it goes. Now, are we going to see some of the Russ of the old? So I'm just bringing this up more as a devil's advocate kind of thing. So obviously he had injuries. So and when you have injuries to your hand and your fingers, it's a problem as a QB. But
if you're trying to throw the ball,
it's a big problem. But still, so whether you want to blame it on Pete and the schemes, not having enough of a balanced attack, whether it's Russ, but here are the realities. Okay, his PFF passing grade 70.7, career low mark. QB rating 98.6, lowest mark since 2017. In terms of big throws, his big throw success rate, lowest since 2017. Adjusted completion rate, 71%, lowest since 2017, right? So there's a theme there. He's hit some pretty low lows in terms of his performance, right? So you have him who's going to turn 34 sometime this fall. So 34-year-old hitting lows last season. You tell me, is that because of all those other extraneous factors, external factors of scheme, of just frustrations on the team, injuries, or is this a huge gamble of taking on this in kind of a win now mode for someone who might be hitting their decline? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm willing to chalk up the second half of last year to injury because he came back like significantly quicker than anybody else said they would. And it was almost like that said that he would. And
sure.
To be fair, like, a lot of that was on him. It became like a pride thing. Like, oh, it's a 6-week injury, I'm going to come back in 3. Like, he was like taking like fake huddles and like in warmups and stuff. Just like that. I mean, he's a nut, but I mean, he was awesome before the injury. He was legitimately awesome. Had it like a 68% completion percentage in every single start, those first 5. Like week 1, 4 touchdowns. Week 2, 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 3, 300 yards, 1 touchdown. Like, was legitimately awesome. And then he got hurt. And then he didn't throw for more than 260 yards the rest of the season. Like, to me, I think there's a very clear line which you're looking at. If you didn't know an injury happened, you would see it clear before and after. And to play your devil's advocate, the same thing happened a year before with no injury. Like 2020, the COVID year, he was awesome the first 8 games. He was terrible the last 8. And it felt like, I don't know if this was Russell Wilson, but they always surrounded him with A, horrible offensive line, and B, a horrible offensive coaching staff. The most curmudgeon-y, run the ball down the throat of the opponent type of offense, and like never really like we like to say, let him cook. So it felt like 2 years ago, I mean, the MO on them was just play 2 deep safety, don't let them beat you deep, and they can't do it. And the offense has caught on, and they had no answer to that. And I put that more on the coaching staff. And I think going to Denver, he's got a ton of weapons. Jerry Jeudy, he's got the receiver. I'm just blanking on names. Courtland Sutton, and then Tim Patrick. 2 awesome running backs, a good tight end. I think the only really concern, well, there's 2. Number 1, the offensive line in Denver's bad. They were bad last year. So he's like going from a bad offensive line again, coming from Seattle. And the coaching staff is completely new. So you never know how a new coaching staff is going to be. So that's always a risk. But yeah, I mean, I love Russ. I think he's got great weapons. I think this Broncos team can be really good. So I'll give this one a thumbs up as well.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, and I think to your point, right, the offensive line play, if you go by like, and look, there's so many different rankings out there, but if you go by a lot of these projection models and PFF and all these different places, they're kind of projecting the Broncos to be middle of the pack, from an offensive line ranking. And if you actually go back, Seattle was like basically at the bottom. So
every year.
Yeah, and so in fairness to what you were saying, he's going to go from basically almost dead last in terms of offensive line play to protect him and to kind of help him with his schemes to hopefully, if projections are right, an average offensive line. So what can Russ do as an elite quarterback with an average offensive line with some weapons to play with? And like you said, the running game is legit. Javonte Williams, a beast. Melvin Gordon, let's not forget, right? And then, like you said, Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler. You got all these guys. So I'm just curious, where do you see Jerry Jeudy in the pecking order? Do you think, is he a legit, do you see him as like a legit wide receiver too? Or do you think that's being overly generous? Do you think even like Patrick or Hamler, like, you know, are above him actually? So some people have been debating that, like, is Jerry Jeudy legit, or, you know, or should he actually not even be considered like a wide receiver 2 at this point?
To me, it all depends on the passing volume. I think he's legit. I think he's awesome. And he reminds me of like the kind of like a Doug Baldwin type. Like he's not like he's athletically, he's not going to wow you. I think he's a little more athletic than Baldwin was, but just such a precise route runner will just beat you with leverage. And Russ and Doug Baldwin have like a great connection, but Cortland Sutton is more of the deep threat, not obviously the athletic freak that DK Metcalf was, but more in line with his receivers that he had towards the end of his career in Seattle. So to me, I kind of think it's going to be more of like a 1B and 2A type thing with Sutton and Jeudy. So I don't necessarily think Sutton's going to be a 1A, but I don't think Judy's going to be a 1. It's almost like I said, 1B and 2A type situation. And then I think Patrick is a clear third. Hamler's coming off the ACL, so you don't really know what he's going to give you. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those weapons, I mean, we don't need to go through each team, but that's got to be up there with the best receiving weapons in the NFL, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you go by like, and again, they're fantasy models, but if you go by like fantasy rankings, like, you know, they have, you know, Sutton, Jeudy, like they're ranked like, you know, statistically, right, just by numbers, they're like considered top 30, right? So you got two people who are kind of in that top 30 ranking. You know, Patrick's not horrible. I think like fantasy have him somewhere in that 50 something range. So you got a legit receiver core. And look, the team's committed, right? I think they signed a 4-year with Sutton for like 60 mil or something. Patrick for a 3-year, 30 something mil. And then, you know, you still have Jeudy, you know, so you got all these guys. And so I feel the same way. I mean, I give it a thumbs up. And that's why, back to your original sweat, no sweat, I mean, I could easily see them taking it and you know, making it competitive versus like Kansas City. So, I mean, you have the pieces in place. Literally, in my opinion, this is execution time. You got a running game. You got weapons in the wide receiving core. You have a legit stud quarterback. Hopefully, like I said, you have an average, and maybe they could play above their expectation offensive line. So, you know, all the ingredients are there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And their defense, I think which we haven't really touched on. I was surprised to see they're only 20th in DVOA last year. They're like a bottom third defense.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, I just wonder how, especially with a defensive head coach with Vic Fangio, I just wonder, like, I feel like defense, when you have a train wreck quarterback, is so hard to play. Unless you're like, you know, your Bears, the playoff year with Trubisky, like, unless you're like, you know, like a historically good defense. Yeah, sure. Having such mediocrity at quarterback is so deflating. So I wouldn't be surprised, because they have the talent, right? They have Bradley Chubb's good. Patrick Surtain's good. Yeah. They have the talent. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they are top 15 defense just based on talent alone. I'm not sure who their defensive coordinator is. Again, that's like a big question mark, which there's really no way of us knowing how that's going to work out. Sure. But yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to note, was I was surprised at how poorly their defense ranked this past year.
That is surprising. Yeah. I know I was a big Fangio fan with the Bears, so that is a little surprising.
Yeah,
but
he's more of a defensive coordinator than head coach type guy. That's kind of what I think.
All right. And then our last big one that we'll cover related to QBs, and we'll kind of be quick with this one, is Baker Mayfield to the Panthers. So I'm going to just be quick with this one. I'm going to say thumbs up for the value. Okay. Because basically, if you go through all the language and the finances and how much of the tab that the Browns had to put up, like, the Panthers are getting a 1-year rental for $5 million. And it's not a bad, to me, for a 1-year experiment. It's not going to be super expensive, and you're not tied to anything long term. That my literal summary is, why not? Why not take a stab on Baker? And I will say I'm biased, as he's not consistent, He makes a bunch of mistakes. He holds on to the ball. Maybe not as bad as Wentz, but he plays hero ball a bit too much. But you know what? I like his swag and I like his moxie. And mentally, I'd rather take him way over Carson Wentz, in my opinion. And at least he has some potential upside, in my opinion. And if you can have Christian McCaffrey healthy, Foreman was actually a pretty reliable fill-in for Derrick Henry. I mean, you got some legit running back players. You have DJ Moore. The rest, to me, it kind of falls off a little after DJ Moore from a receiving standpoint. So you got one legit weapon, in my opinion, that we'll see. I just think it's going to be a fun experiment, hopefully. but from a value standpoint, I give them a thumbs up for why not, almost.
I mean, yeah, for that, yes, but like, how much can you value a turd? Like, if you're buying a turd, it doesn't matter the deal you got on it. You're still getting. I think I'm with you. I wish so badly Baker Mayfield was good, because I feel like quarterbacks have become so like CEO type, where like you don't show emotion and you just say the politically correct thing every single time. I wish so much that Baker Mayfield was good. I just think he stinks. I think he is absolutely terrible. I mean, talk about quarterback rating. He's below Carson Wentz was last year. He's below Andy Dalton. He's below Trevor Siemian. He's below Jameis Winston.
Rough.
The only he is above Sam Darnold, so maybe they upgraded that way. But I mean, like, I can't think of a sadder QB room in the entire NFL when you consider him and Darnold where they are now, considering like what they were when they came out, like number one pick. What was Darnold, like the third, I think?
Yeah. I mean, so and who's underneath is Matt, right? Matt Corral.
Corral. Yeah, I think
Corral.
So.
Yeah,
who came off the knee injury, right? Wasn't he?
God, yeah. That is it's rough, man. It's rough. So, but like you said, look, I preface my thumbs up is for value, and it's better than what you got. And I'm biased because I'm kind of with you. I just think he's a fun guy. He basically agree. I was sold the moment he said he woke up feeling dangerous. And I said, I need more of these QBs with these one-liners, because this is what makes it fun. And we want to see that swag and that cockiness. Unfortunately, like you said, the numbers don't back up the swag and the cockiness. So this could be an ugly train wreck. But I would much rather have a 1-year experiment with him than even going anywhere near Carson Wentz, in my opinion. So
that's
not a fair comparison.
Well, I mean, it's not. I mean, I guess the value trade wise, but like for me, I don't really see a difference between him and Darnold, and now you just have two of them. Like you have two of the same disappointing bad quarterback, and also
that's true.
Their head coach, Matt Rule, gives me Matt Nagy vibes going into his last year with the Bears, like just out of answers, had nothing left, just tried to pull out all the like magician stops. Like I just get like train wreck vibes from him. I think just like trying to like, he's just, I don't know, he just seems broken. Like the same way Matt Nagy seemed broken, he just seems broken.
Yeah, and I feel bad for DJ Moore, because I was looking and I can't remember where DJ Moore has had the misfortune of having the QB be an old and broken Cam Newton, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, Garrett Gilbert, Will Grier, Teddy Bridgewater at not a great place in his career, PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, and now he gets
it's not great.
Baker as the upgrade. So he has been in QB hell is all I have to say. That was my final commentary. So
him and McLaurin, like such good receivers that are just in QB hell.
QB hell, man. That's got to be rough. That's got to be rough. All right. Well, let's wrap it up real quick. So we wanted to touch on these receivers, and then we're going to go through our sophomore slump versus sophomore breakout list real fast. So pretty big moves in terms of the wide receiver realm. And I think wide receivers just don't get as much talk as the QBs, because the QB is the sexiest position. But Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, I mean, big stud receivers. We're not talking run of the mill.
Top three probably receivers in the entire NFL, I would guess.
Yeah, and look, this is all. I'll kick off Devontae. I'll kick this one. I say I'm excited for this one, man. I really am, because I'm a Derek Carr fan. I think Derek Carr doesn't get enough love, and when you look at Derek Carr, he's not top tier elite, but he's in like the top 10 or top 15 for most standard stat lines. So he's not bad, guys. And where he's pretty good is where I'm excited. Big, and I know it's a weird stat, but big time throw rate, like just huge bombs. I mean, he's like top 7. Okay. So now you have him who's willing to just sling and chuck the hell out of the rock. and you're adding Devontae Adams. And I know we saw some slippage at times with like Waller, and he's getting a little bit older, but Waller and Renfrow have to be salivating, saying, hey, when everyone was basically just keying on us, knowing that we're the only options, literally, and now, you're adding Devontae Adams, who now has to be doubled, basically. I mean, Waller has got to be just doing a dance right now, saying, I'm going to have a huge season, man. I mean, these guys are going to just be eating as a result of all the attention that Devontae Adams is going to be getting. So I'm excited because I'm just ready to see the rock being thrown around all across the field in all different directions. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, it's exciting if you're a Raiders fan. For a not Raiders fan, just a fan of the NFL. I mean, the Rodgers to Adams combination was, just so good.
Oh,
I think that's the biggest disappointment with both of these receivers. Go from like elite of the elite quarterbacks, like historically great will go down as quarterbacks, to like, Tua is, I think he's trash, and then to Derek Carr, who I don't think is trash. Yeah, I think their offense can be really good. I think, again, taking away the head coach part, which makes me nervous, Josh McDaniels, I don't really think the Raiders get enough credit, and Carr specifically, for keeping that team together last year. Part of that was their head coach, or their Rick Pisacci, I think was his name, their interim head coach. But that Gruden situation could have turned into it, and they could have just had a downward spiral and just been like, it's not our year. But they made the playoffs. I think that legitimately impressive how he was able to keep the team together. He has his limitations. How many weapons, you can't really change a quarterback, but they, in terms of weapons, him, Renfrow, and Waller, that's a top 3 trio in terms of receivers and tight ends. And Josh Jacobs is fine. Kenyon Drake is fine. Their offensive line, to my memory, is like middle of the pack. So yeah, everything is there for the Raiders to be good. I have questions about Derek Carr, and I have questions at head coach.
Yep.
As my dog wants to say hi.
All right. Why don't you kick it? What about Tyreek? What do you think about the Tyreek Hill move?
Yeah, again, this one I think is even worse, because I can't think of a worse quarter. I guess like Tyreek Hill can take a slant to the house, so it's not exact, but like the deep bombs, Tyreek Hill, he's not going to get going from Mahomes to, it's like a Ferrari to like a busted up Honda Civic from Mahomes to Tua. I don't think the Dolphins are going to make any noise. I don't think Tua is that good. I don't blame the Dolphins for basically being like, all right, well, we're going to put everybody around him and we'll know whether he's good or not. Sure. That's not surprising. I don't think it's a bad move from the Dolphins' perspective. I can't see it working out for Tua, is where I'm at.
I agree, man. I'm not a huge believer in Tua, and I think a lot of people have made rationalizations and excuses, like I made excuses for Fields, but I just don't see it. I don't see the skill set. I don't see him taking maybe a small but not a huge step forward that I think Tyreek might regret. Not for the money. He's probably sleeping very fine at night for the money, but
from a football
in terms of
from
a football perspective, on the field, I think he's going to find it's a very drastic shift from, like you said, going from Mahomes to Tua's arm, basically. So,
yeah, I agree. I think the Dolphins aren't going to make any noise.
Yeah. All right, guys. So let's run through a quick segment. We're going to just do one-liners, one quick 1 or 2 sentences talking about sophomore year quarterbacks. So are we going to see sophomore slumps, or are we going to see some sophomore breakouts taking a step forward? So we'll just run down the list real quick of the bigger name QBs before we get to our best bets. So I'll kick it off with the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields. I'm going to say slump, unfortunately. And I want to put a caveat, though. I don't think it's because of him. We have nothing.
Yeah.
We have nothing. We
Slump.
have Darnell Mooney, and we went out and got Byron Pringle and Equanimeous St. Brown. We picked up everyone's wide receiver 3s and 4s or lower. Like, what are we doing, Chicago? We basically relegated him to another year where we won't know what the hell is going on. Get some real weapons. So that's my only concern with Justin Fields.
Yeah, everything you say I agree with. Slump.
All right, you kick it off for Mac Jones. Slump or breakout?
So compared to how good he was last year, I'm going to say slump, because I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year. So I'm going to say I don't think he'll be bad, but if we're comparing his trajectory from previous year, I will say slump.
I'm going to go slump. I think it was a great system, and people probably say I'm underrating him, but look, I just think it was a good defense, good team, good coaching. Weirdly, right? Like they still haven't even named an offensive coordinator. So things are up in the air there.
I know everything's so weird in New England.
It's so weird. What real weapons is he going to have? There were no huge upgrades. So I don't know. I think he's a little overrated. So I'm going to go with Slump. So Davis Mills.
Breakout.
I'm going to say Breakout.
I love
Breakout.
Davis Mills.
I will tell you right now, Davis Mills is a hot commodity in the trading card market. People love Davis Mills. So
interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Zach Wilson, I'm going to say neutral or Slump because the Jets are the Jets. I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, I put Slump in all caps. I mean, granted, he was the third worst quarterback in the entire MLB last year. But I think the Jets suck. I think he sucks. I think just all of it's bad.
Not even with the MILF thing, huh? Okay. All right.
I mean, that is a plus in his off the field.
Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to say huge breakout. I am very high on T-Law. I think it was a terrible situation he was in, paired with better coaching. I think whether it's this or next year, I think he has a high. I'm actually very high on T-Law. That's my opinion. It's a breakout, huge breakout, in my opinion.
I agree. I have breakout. I mean, Doug Peterson has known to get the best out of his quarterbacks. Again, like going from Wentz to Ryan, I don't think you can overrate going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson in terms of electability. So yeah, breakout.
And then you kick it off. Last one, Trey Lance, breakout or slump?
Since we don't really have anything to compare to, I'm going breakout because I just trust a whole offseason of Kyle Shanahan and him to figure it out.
Same here. I'm going to say without knowing much, Shanahan and the skill set, let's go. Breakout season. So, all right, guys, moving on to best bets. We'll be really quick about this to wrap things up. I'm going to give you a UFC parlay. Here's my parlay going into the weekend. I'm going to parlay together 2 money lines. Brandon Moreno. All right. Viva la Mexico, guys. Come on. Brandon Moreno money line. And I'm nervous about this, but I'm going to go with Nunez to redeem herself. Okay. Moreno has beat Kai Kara France before. I think he's going to be hungry coming off of that loss to Figueiredo where he did not look focused. He was very sloppy. So I think he's going to get his shit together. He's already beat this guy. So I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. Hopefully he doesn't get outpointed by being sloppy, but he just used that huge hook, overhand hook, and he kept him at bay. I think he's going to pull out the dub. Nunez, if you go back, as devastating as that enormous upset was, she was dominating round 1. I think she didn't take it seriously. She was too caught up in success, making Modelo commercials. Her cardio was terrible. If she just is focused and prepped and wants to redeem herself, I think we'll see a competitive match. I don't think it's going to be easy either, but she's one of the great ones. So I'm going to roll with her. I'm going to roll with Moreno, and you can get that at positive money, plus money on DraftKings at plus 103 right now. That's my UFC parlay for the weekend.
I like it. I also have a parlay. Mine's WNBA. Pretty easy. Moneyline Sun, Moneyline Mercury. Both teams are at home. Both teams play better at home. Both teams are playing competition that don't play as well on the road. To me, it felt like a perfect time to just parlay them together. I think I got it on BetMGM at like plus 143, just literally a money line parlay, and that was that.
Very nice. Very nice. I might have to hit that up then. That's tonight, right?
Tonight, yeah. I think
tonight.
One of them might start kind of soon.
Got it.
Yeah, if you want to get that in, one of them starts soon. So if you guys want to get that in, you have to do it quick.
Gotcha. All right. Any other bets, Matt?
No, I mean, I guess I had the Lynx money line as a play as well. Those are the 2 public WNBA plays I had. Everything else I put out on Discord. So those are private, but those are my 2 public ones. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sweat the Bet. As a reminder, please check out oddsjam.com, the OddsJam player prop app. Okay. Subscribe here and on all major podcast mediums. Check out our live streams on YouTube. Check us out on every social media platform. And I think, what are we announcing, Matt? Are we telling them about the time change and the date change for our
we can do that. Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah. What we're doing.
So we're doing moving forward, guys. This is going to shift a little bit to not conflict with some of our other live streams here on OddsJam. So we will be on Wednesdays. So Wednesdays in the evening at, I think, what is it? We would say 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. Is that what we're doing a little bit later?
I think so. The time difference just messes me up. Time isn't real, but I think we agreed to, I can go back
Wednesday evenings.
Wednesday evenings. Yeah. At 7. Yeah. You got exactly right. 7 Central, 8 Eastern.
So that's the only change, guys. One day before on Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. same episode, same content, and obviously things are going to ramp up as NFL gets back into action, guys. So, all right. So thanks for joining us here at Sweat the Bet, and subscribe to our YouTube and our social media, and subscribe to our podcast, guys. Thank you. Appreciate all the support.
All right. Thanks, guys.